Hello, everyone. Welcome to my podcast. My name is Sean, and we are going to be taking a dive into the deep works of literature that we studied in class this year. First on the agenda, we have my semester one novel, Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Second, we have the short story Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. And the third and final novel I will be discussing is Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. During the podcast, please feel free to pause and just let the information wash over you, and let me know if you have any other comments in the comments below. To begin, Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky is the epitome of nihilism versus existentialism, which were both common philosophies we studied this year. Let me explain. The protagonist, Rodion Raskolnikov, was an egotistical character who had no faith in anything or anyone whatsoever. He lives in St. Petersburg, Russia, is a very poor student in a very poor area, and because of this, he tends to believe he is way above everyone else. And to kind of prove this to himself, I guess, he kills a greedy pawn shop owner to prove his superiority. And then the pawn shop owner's sister was there, so guess what? No witnesses, and that leads him to kill two technically innocent people. They were a little scummy, but they didn't break any laws or anything like that. And because of his lack of belief or faith, he really doesn't feel any remorse until the deuteragonist Sonia Marmeladov enters the picture. She's a very pious character and is also the love interest of the protagonist. And she attempts to get Raskolnikov to find a purpose through religious beliefs. She is a direct juxtaposition to the protagonist, and one of the ways the author portrays this, and my personal favorite, is through the biblical story of Lazarus. And a really quick, crude summary of the story is a poor, sick man who still is faithful ends up being saved by Jesus. And Sonia uses this story as a message to Raskolnikov that he too can be saved through religion, but he still resists. In fact, he himself uses it another way as a facade when he's later caught by detectives, questioned by detectives about the murders. And he says he's gonna put up a face of Lazarus, I guess, and trying to invoke pity on them because he's a poor, sick college student. And it really shows how the two ways the story is used. It's really kind of evil in a way. And after time, Sonia finally starts to break through Raskolnikov, and he begins to kind of further feel the weight of the two murders he committed. She eventually convinces him to turn himself in, but before she leaves, she gives him a cross, and he accepts it. This is a huge turning point in the story because it marks Raskolnikov's acceptance of faith. And even though he was sentenced to 8 years of hard labor in Siberia, he had a fraction of peace within him, I guess. And that the ability to repent kind of holds a big weight. So the main takeaway from Crime and Punishment that the author Dostoevsky is trying to convey is through the parallelism within the story, with Sonia being Jesus and Raskolnikov being a sinner that needs to be able to repent. Dostoevsky also writes Crime and Punishment to reflect his own time period. He, too, grew up in a starving, poor area, also in Russia, and nihilistic ideology was extremely prevalent. So he wanted to kind of change that, and through this novel, he conveys existentialist viewpoints and promotes the fact that meaning in life can be found through one's actions, and through faith, humanity can repent from its sins. Once again, that is a very small portion of a very long novel. For a change of pace, let's take a look at the novella, The Metamorphosis. This is a rather grim story of a businessman who wakes up to quite a horrifying discovery. The Metamorphosis tells the story of Gregor Samsa, a traveling salesman who awakens one morning to discover that he has undergone a bizarre transformation, becoming a gigantic insect-like creature. This novella takes us on a journey through the mind of a man-turned-insect and explores profound themes that continue to resonate with readers today. One of those themes is alienation. As you can imagine, being turned into a bug would change the dynamic of your family, and of course, it does with Gregor's as well. A lot. His family's inability to verbally communicate distances them even more because bugs do not speak English. His sister, Greta, delivers him food, and Gregor realizes once he drinks his milk, which used to be his complete favorite thing, that he is losing more and more of his human attributes as time goes on. And his sister, who tried to understand his situation and once again delivered his food, even she becomes more and more disgusted with the bug that's living in her home. And the more Gregor loses of his old self, like with the milk and all his favorite foods, the more estranged he feels from his family. And that's also how we encounter the theme of absurdity of human existence. Through the surreal and absurd elements, Kafka highlights the nonsensical nature of Gregor's situation and more broadly the human condition itself. The reactions of Gregor's family and their inability to cope with his transformation emphasizes the existential absurdity and chaotic nature of life. Gregor's struggle to reconcile with his human conscience and desires with his insect form forms the crux of his journey of self-discovery. He grapples with feelings of shame, confusion, and even a sense of guilt because he is more and more of a burden on his family. And that's especially impactful because before his transformation, he was actually the breadwinner for his mother, father, and sister. And as the narrative progresses, we witness his attempts to retain a semblance of his former life, and he tries to listen to music or even tries to communicate through other means to his family. However, none of it really works. And Gregor struggles alone for a little longer until he finally dies. But his death isn't portrayed in a negative light completely, because it does allow for his family to move into a sunny countryside without him, contrasting the dark apartment they lived in with him. And that concludes the segment on Metamorphosis. Quite a fascinating short story on quite an abnormal situation. Real quick, I would like to give a quick thanks to one of the sponsors of this podcast, Guardian Shield Bug Defense. If you are tired of bugs staying in your home and not leaving, well, this is a perfect product for you. For the low price of $19.99, a can of Guardian Shield is yours. You can even pay a little more for a professional to do the dirty work. Thanks again, Guardian Shield Bug Defense, for supporting this podcast. The final novel of today's podcast will be Their Eyes Were Watching God. It is a compelling tale in the early 20th century following the life of Janie Crawford, an African-American woman searching for her own identity and voice in a society marked with racial and gender oppression. It was published in 1937. It provides a vivid and unapologetic depiction of Janie's journey towards self-discovery and love. One of the central themes in the novel is the exploration of personal freedom and self-realization. Janie initially is married off by her grandmother at a very young age. She embarks on a quest to find her own happiness and fulfillment. Throughout the story, she navigates through 3 marriages, each one offering a very unique perspective on love, passion, and independence. Hurston's portrayal of Janie's inner strength and resilience resonates with the readers as we witness her break free from societal expectations and find her own voice. Their Eyes Were Watching God also delves into the power dynamics within relationships and the complexity of love, as Janie's relationship with her 3 husbands, Logan Killicks, Jody Starks, and Tea-Cake, showcase the different forms of love, ranging from the stifling and oppressive to the liberating and the transformative. Hurston skillfully portrays the nuances and complexities of these relationships, highlighting the importance of mutual respect, equality, and the ability to freely express one's individuality within a partnership. Those are just some key takeaways from this extremely impactful novel, and also concludes our quick analysis of Their Eyes Were Watching God. Those are all the novels we're going to analyze today. If you have any thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. And finally, I would like to give thanks to our last sponsor, the Center of Animal Disease. They are the leading group for rabies research and prevention, ensuring safer lives for our furry friends and for us. Once again, thank you for the supporters of the Peyton Podcast. We will see you all next time.